Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. This is Khyber Shards Answers, our Friday Q&A, and we are joined by RA today to talk about...
RA doing QA on KSA.
Today. And we're going to talk about our most recent episode and recent events. Our most recent episode, Ballroom Blitz, easily the most confusing combat encounter that I'm aware of written for a D&D adventure, and one of my favorites that exists anywhere in the published D&D world. So we have recorded since that episode came out, and there is much more clarity as to what's been going on in our current status as far as where we recorded to. What's the degree? I'm trying to remember, what was the degree for you of just no idea what's happening at the end of the ballroom fight?
Total. I didn't even... Do we have we revealed the identities of the major players already? I forget in the episode.
Yes. Everybody's mask gets knocked off.
I remember saying at the end of the episode, what is going on? And I didn't even catch that Lucan and Mina were those people. Like, it was, I was so utterly turned around with what was happening that it didn't, like, okay, he's got a sword. I don't know, everyone's got swords. I thought the big deal was that they snuck a sword in, not that it was like the sword, right? So there was just like and Ezri, I mean, of course, Ezri as well, in that moment being an extension of myself, and just, I had no idea. And I think I'll previewing, you say much more clarity, and that's true. It is not total clarity from Ezri's point of view. He is still... We recorded last night, actually, and I spent a lot of time in bed last night trying to figure out, okay, what does Ezri need to do to untangle everything in his mind? Because there's a lot that it has just been happening. Everything's been happening, and there's been no processing and no chance for anyone to, like, well, not no chance, but not much chance for anyone to sit down and say, like, okay, what, from your perspective, what? Right. Why?
Do you remember what you thought was going on at the end of the ballroom fight? Like, at the point that Ezri and Ari get arrested and Shade and Pog flee in pursuit of Lucan, do you remember what you thought had happened?
Okay, we had made it to that point.
Yeah, that's where it ended. Is you guys? Okay. It was right when Ezri and Ari get arrested and Shade and Pog are out. That's where the episode ends.
So, at least at the beginning of the fight, okay, so I see. Once we're actually into the fight, and okay, it's clear it's Lucan and Mina. Ezri thought there's the masked person he was thinking was an agent of, potentially an agent of demise, or an agent of I apologize, but the house that it was stolen from, or the group it was stolen from.
Oh, the Emerald Claw.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Who had it in Stormreach that Lucan stole it from?
The Emerald Claw.
Oh, that was the Emerald Claw. Yeah. That's who was holding it.
Yeah, that's who you guys got into a fight with at the docks. Oh, right. I'm sorry.
But then Lucan took it from...
Yes, the King's Citadel.
Embassy. Okay.
Yeah, the Brelish Embassy, the King's Citadel, is the agency that Lucan worked for.
So he was thinking, okay, maybe it's someone like that. And then when the guards started trying to stop us from helping Lucan, I thought, I apologize. What is the ambassador's name?
Naya.
Naya. That, Naya's being betrayed in her own, like these guards
Oh,
are
okay.
betraying Nea. And so that's why he's trying to like talk to Nea and also fight off the guards. And then of course she says that's an agent of the crown, and that wait, okay. Rewind. What? And so then there was the okay, finally he understood, well, wait, you betrayed Lucan. And that's where Ezri is, I think, at the end of the episode. He's like, wait, okay, hold on. I thought we were all friends and there were some other parties, but no, you're actually the enemy here. And so that's where he's at, trying to figure out, because he thought he was there to help Nea protect Lucan and Mina, and then, well, that's not what's happening apparently at all. So
Right.
And then of course there's the Falcon. I don't recall. I don't think Ezri knows about the Falcon. Actually, he just knows that there was
not at the end of the episode, but yeah,
that there was a bat, and they booked it after the bat. Okay, well,
I love it. Like the way it's written. It's written in the adventure, and if you're wondering, viewers, and you don't know, I'm not going to say the name of the adventure because the adventure's name has spoilers in it, and that I find deeply stupid. So at the end of this adventure, I'll let you know and talk about it a little bit more. But within the adventure, it is like, strictly speaking, I actually simplified this encounter slightly, because in the adventure as written, there are no fewer than 4 sides other than the adventuring party involved in this conflict.
Okay. I feel better about it because, like,
it's
I feel
deliberately
like I was
confusing.
feeling what it was supposed to make me feel.
Yes, that's absolutely the intention of the adventure. It's one of the things I love about it. It's like in the adventure as written, Nea is not. There are other agents at the party of the same country as Nea, but working different agendas, and so there are Ondarians and Lucan and Mina and the adventuring party and the Emerald Claw. Like there's just all of this stuff intertwined, and I love it. It's so chaotic. It's so well written as to be runnable, which is I think the amazing thing is that it's written in a way that it is actually comprehensible for the GM. But it is total chaos for the adventurers, and it's very fun to watch. It was very fun to watch you guys as players go through but I have, and no, I mean, Ezri expresses it exactly. I have no idea whose side we're on. Like that's absolutely the intended feeling.
Yeah. And that's how I got boiled down. I think ultimately in his mind too, we don't know what all is at play here. They don't know he was a vampire. There's like a lot going on we don't know, but protecting Mina is like the real definable objective that we can stick to, accomplish now, and so that's why he's sort of pushing this. Like, we're here to protect Mina. Like, that's everything else. I don't know that we can control, but like that's what we can try to do.
Yeah, well, and that makes sense, and that's another thing that's not specifically included in the adventure is the concern about Mina, because the source of the mission is very different in the adventure, because obviously I adjusted who you got the job from to fit our campaign, and I'd like to say this was something I planned out ahead of time, of giving you the thing about Mina from Thora to make it a little bit clearer what you could do. But no, it's just worked well that way, of giving a rationale for behavior. Because I realized afterwards that looking at the adventure, there's a pretty plausible argument for the adventurers saying, wow, I've got no idea what's going on. I'm going to stand over here out of the way and see what happens. Like, there's a pretty plausible argument for doing exactly that.
And that's what Nea said to do, right? It's like, yeah, well, just stay out of it. And yeah, there's definitely an idea that maybe, especially once Lucan leaves, it's like, well, just gonna go.
Yeah. So no, I enjoyed it. It was and I think it was really fun to watch. Watching it again in the watch party is I think it was good. Speaking of that, there was a question from Darren directed at me as to whether I considered using the 3D map thing for the party. I only really considered it briefly. A lot of times I have found that maps are very useful for clarifying position and what's going on. And it probably would have been to a degree here. But when I was looking at the whole idea of the crowd as a hazard in this encounter, there are just so many different pieces moving around the board in this encounter that I think it would have made fairly long rounds, which were already fairly long, even longer. I think it would have been really hard to keep all the pieces where they needed to be, and it would have been, I think, very difficult to represent the mob crowd thing without the board being just entirely incomprehensible from a viewing perspective. Right. So that's ultimately why I didn't. We do use it for some of the encounters later in this adventure, but for this one, I thought that the tedium of all of the different moving parts outweighed the clarity that might have been brought to the encounter. And in hindsight, I would also say there's probably something to be argued for not adding clarity to this encounter, because it's kind of intended to be who in the world knows what's gone wrong here, but something terrible has happened.
I will say that this encounter, and even up to what we've recorded as the aftermath, has been very well. I've enjoyed it very much. It's been very pleasantly cinematic. You know, you can definitely see how this party, this whole thing would be filmed. You know, it's been that this kind of scene has been in a lot of like heist movies or
sure,
thriller movies, and I found that all very enjoyable. It's well, this sounds arrogant, I guess, but it's not very often that I'm like, I don't see the shape of the end game of a story. You know, it's like, okay, I can get where this is going usually, and
sure.
There's been a lot of just nope, don't know where this is going, and that's been a lot of fun.
Well, good. I'm glad it's been enjoyable. As I have told you guys off screen, maybe on screen, this is one of my favorite published adventures. I think it's just brilliantly written, and I'm really pleased with the ways in which I've adjusted it to fit our campaign, and also to keep Eric on his toes, because Eric has played it before. So I made some important adjustments to prevent Eric from knowing what was going on, even though he's done a really good job of faking ignorance, even before we got to places where I had made substantial adjustments. But also a lot of decisions you guys make in the coming episodes completely rewrite the way the climax of the adventure falls out in a bunch of ways. So it'll be fun to break that down after all of the episodes are out and talk about how the adventure is at least written to go. Yeah. Laura would just like to say something. Oh, no, there is a question here. Okay. That map might still be for sale at Forgotten Places. Has Ezri thought about going back and buying it? He might run into old friends he knows. And by old friends, I mean shopkeepers who could be more than friends.
Yeah. Okay, so the map was really cool, but I think we've covered this. No, he's very specifically avoiding going back there ever again, because we robbed the dude, and like it's the dumbest thing criminals do is return to the scene of the crime, right? Like it's a known thing that criminals do, and no, we are not going back there on purpose, especially not to buy a cool looking map to hang in a place that he doesn't expect to live anymore.
Laura also asks, Philip, a while ago, someone suggested doing a KSA of you setting up a session, but you didn't want to because Eric was editing at the time. So do you care to reconsider now? An episode, a KSA of me prepping a session might be doable. I would need to think out what exactly that would entail, because me prepping a session is usually over the course of several days in the back of my head thinking about D&D, and then a little while before the episode sitting down and writing down the thoughts in a more coherent outline. The actual like visual element of setup would be, I guess, building virtual tabletop maps and that kind of thing. So there's some things I would just need to figure out what there would be to actually record. I could, I guess, show my notes from a previous episode and talk about how I imagined it going. So there's probably something I could do there. I would just need to think about what I would need to do to make it interesting as a video before I could do it.
I can think of a way, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I would take suggestions. So yeah, if you have thoughts on what you would want to see, since filming myself writing at my dining table is probably not that interesting, I guess I could put some chill music on the background and it would have some benefit. I don't know.
Just lo-fi girl it.
Yeah, it's just
it's just you
but yeah,
painting minis.
Mm-hmm. While calm music plays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me have what you think it should look like, and I'll think about it. I'll definitely take suggestions on how to do that in a way that would be interesting. Emily has been going through the cast with this question. What would Mo wear to a masquerade ball, assuming he has an unlimited budget that can only be spent on looking nice for the ball?
The obvious answer here being is he's a young boy, and the idea of a masquerade ball is probably not within his experience. He was told he was supposed to dress up for a party and he had unlimited budget. He's going full on Kolos Crusher cosplay.
Yeah,
that's no doubt there at all. Obviously not appropriate for a masquerade ball, probably, but yeah, well, that's he's got pretty much one hero, and well, that he has any access to. he lives in a house with him, so he'd probably steal some of Pog's stuff if he could, to make it happen. Yeah, awesome. Especially Pog's gone. He's gonna sneak in and steal some of his stuff.
Darren says, all right, please elaborate on Ezri's current feelings about intelligent undead like vampires. In the episode, there was a moment of Ezri saying, I'm not sure we're categorically against vampires.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think Ezri's categorically against any type of sentient person. Given his past, given how he's the treatment he's experienced for being a given type of person in multiple facets, and continue, like it's getting worse, not better, for him. He's definitely not inclined to take any sort of moral or even what's the right term? He's not going to take sides against someone based on anything that they are, especially undead at this point. He doesn't see that as like some sort of inherent negative, clearly. So yeah, I don't think that being a vampire to him, hey, he's ignorant in a lot of ways. So I don't know that even I understand in D&D terms what exactly being a vampire requires. Um, there's maybe you can tell me, but my conception of vampire, my lore of vampire, I choose the Anne Rice outlook on things, and it comes down to like, killing isn't necessary, to for survival.
That's probably true. Feeding is necessary, but it wouldn't have to be. It wouldn't have to be lethal. D&D tends to, especially recently, there may be more detail in older editions that tended to be a little more rules heavy, but probably due to the many different vampire fictions that people like, D&D has tended to be fairly vague as to what the what the specific feeding requirements of a vampire are, how often, how much, that sort of thing. The basic conception of the vampire is pretty much in the Bram Stoker to Anne Rice direction. It's the classic weaknesses and the classic abilities and all that stuff. But how much a vampire has to drink blood and how often a vampire has to drink blood is largely left to world builders and players to decide. But I don't think I've ever read anything where the vampire is required to kill someone that they're feeding from.
I mean, we've covered this ground a little bit, but Ezri does not operate on principle here. He operates on the situation in front of him. If you're a killer and he can deem your killing as a benefit to, in some way, as a good thing, that's not gonna worry him too much. If you're hurting his friends, you're persona non grata, like you're out. So it's it would be on a case by case basis, but definitely not just because someone is a vampire or any certain race, or I'm trying to think of what else you can't, lycanthrope, or
sure.
What else is there in D&D that you can become and still retain your sentience?
There's all kinds of undeadness. Like people can become mummies. Actually, there's the high priest of the Blood of Vol religion is a mummy, who lives in Karnath. You can be a lich. There's lots of different forms of thinking undead.
You lich, you literally have to, if I remember correctly, you got to do some bad stuff to become a lich.
There's some kind of really, really dire ritual that has to be performed that pulls your soul out and sticks it in a phylactery. That's usually how it ends up getting represented. I don't know that any of the published books specify what the ritual is, but it's not usually presented in a positive way.
I mean, I would say even that he's not going to go into it saying lich equals bad. It's just you're likely that if you encounter one, it's like massive evil. So it's not going to be a question he has to struggle with. But yeah. And he spends this entire encounter just thinking, I really wish we could just talk. We just came here to talk about stuff and try to see where things stood. No one's willing to have a conversation on even footing. So yeah, unfortunate.
Mia asks, were you surprised that your confusion spell worked as effectively as it did?
No. Trying to recall the circumstances that
you targeted it at, I think Lucan, and then you realized it was a 10-foot radius and that you were hitting Mina and a bunch of guards and things like that.
I'm trash and a half at reading spells. I mean so I try to have my turns not just be interminable, and I find a thing, I do it, but then once I do it, I keep reading just okay, this is confusion. Now I'm reading, making sure about things, and I catch, oh right, it's not just who I target, and I just want to make that right. I don't want to, if I know that I messed up a rule, to let it go. So I mean, I was surprised in that sense, but no, I mean, confusion is becoming a core tool in his box at this point. It's well, I've got a mark ability that allows me a way to induce it, and then I also have just the spell on its own, and it's very useful as a it extends the time.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you time to plan other things, or just gives a respite. Respite. Is it respite or respite? I don't know how.
I've heard both.
You know, it gives you a break, so that you can breathe a little bit, heal up a little bit, maybe, and get an advantage. I love that aspect of the spell, that it's like, it's not it doesn't do a discrete thing. Like, there's an option of various effects it can do. Contagion is kind of the same way, but it's really like it just sort of gives you 30% more, gives you about 30% advantage in a fight.
Yeah,
I like that. It feels good.
Mm-hmm. Cool. He
Except
also
when it
wonders
fails,
if you.
then it doesn't feel good.
That's true. Yes, when nobody in the area fails the save, it is lame. Mia asks, "Do you ever say things in game just to make Casey laugh?"
I saw this question and I was trying to think through that, because I don't think I often do it consciously. But we've been together for close to 2 decades now, so you know, I'm sure we have just tons of inside jokes that I don't even realize are inside jokes necessarily. Right. You know, just, you have things that you can say to make someone laugh, and you don't realize it just because you've been together so long. I think it's likely I'm much more often just saying things to try to make somebody laugh, and my wife is the most attuned to my sense of humor and most receptive to it, because we've been together for 2 decades, and you don't get that way without attuning to each other.
Right.
So, yes, probably mostly unconsciously. I'll, yeah. It's the best answer I can give there.
Now I'm thinking about introverts as referring to close relationships by attunement slot rules from D&D. I've got 3 attunement slots. That's as many.
That's
many
true,
close
and we got to
friends as I
cycle them
get.
out sometimes. Yeah.
Yep. Laura asks, "Do you think maybe it was Mirabella who turned Lucan just like she tried to turn Esri into a vampire?" Is her clarification there.
No.
Fair enough. And that
the thought had never entered my mind. I also have more knowledge now, so that's a hard question to answer. But no, I mean, at this point in the adventure, Esri's only thought on the subject is what now? Doesn't make any sense at all. Well, I mean, I guess we know the sword did come from a vampire, so like there's an association already, but no, he doesn't know.
Yeah. Well, that is all of our questions. So we will wrap this up. Thank you all so much for submitting your questions. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so in comments down below. You'll also find in the description links to our social media, our Discord, our merch store, everything down there. New episodes of Khyber Shards drop every Monday. New Khyber Shards answers every Friday. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.